Boom. Good afternoon, my name is Lynn Johnson, and I'm going to spend a few to perhaps more than a few minutes explaining some of the things that I would have to be able to offer you as far as golf instruction. Now, that can be done either over a Zoom and some assisted live online, or I live in southeast Saskatchewan, close to the Estevan area, and and I can make myself available with regard to whatever you might have in mind for a lesson, be it a single lesson, a group lesson, a comprehensive learning course, depending if you are a beginner or in an intermediate level, or if you're a fairly accomplished golfer, and as well as that in the styles of both the traditional style of golf or the natural style of golf, as some people refer to the Norman style, which has been looked upon as the anatomically the most mechanically perfect manner of going out and striking a golf ball. And with that, I'm going to go through some things basically right now, as far as the differentiations, to show you, depending on what style of teaching you might require or wish to have. I will go through some things, as well as that if you are, well, we'll start at the beginning. If you are a beginner golfer and have not really got too much in the formative skills, we would start off with a style of golf called simple golf, developed by Joe Davidson out of the eastern coast of the United States. Because I dealt with Jack Kirkendall, who is an anatomical physicist, a recent late passing, who was the man that independently, through research and self-proving, came up independently with the mechanical swings, mechanics that, as he found out, belonged to Mo Norman, who was considered over the history of golf the most perfect, capable golf striker to have ever played the game. Now, that being the case, because Jack Kirkendall was a scientist, he did things by math, true physics, and the truth of things. I became acquainted with Jack Kirkendall in the early 90s when he had a little classified ad in Golf Tips magazine, and it was with a little introductory booklet to natural golf at the time, which I ordered, and over the course of several years, or many years after, I conferred with Jack Kirkendall on many things as the interest in the game evolved, and went on to natural golf. And a thing of note, and there are numerous natural style golf teachers that have had personally golfed with Mo Norman and now have successful golf schools. I would also note, if you're down in the central states and that, by all means have a look at Todd Graves, who is probably one of the more developed as far as golf teaching schools available as far as the Mo Norman swing. With that, but for the many years, I shall say, in the next while, I will give you some accounts as to why you might wish to call upon me with regard to an acquaintance, either through a beginner to the sophisticated to fine-tuning on traditional style swings, or adapting over to the natural golf style swing, of which I can happily and capably put you back together or tie all the links together, because my little name for my golf style of teaching is known as the missing links type of thing, because it's not so much of changing everything, it's just a matter of linking up everything and getting your golf swing totally connected and totally efficient, at which to the point the errors just kind of disappear as a result of that in itself. First thing, I deal in variables, total variables, as Jack Kirkendall gave me the insights to do. And so with simple golf, the total variables as far as levers and mechanics, the swing, single plane in that, is around 13 or 14 total variables as far as body mechanics, and it is a single axis spring, and as well as that, you're in line to the ball. That is some of the things that is the simple golf is as they say is a basically and a drop through. I will not get into the intricacies today on that, but then we move up to natural golf, and here's the comparative things. As Jack Kirkendall had totally evaluated as a medical and scientific anatomical physicist, and as well as that, thoroughly skilled in subconscious patterning, training, static position drills. As he was explaining through his numerous videos, which I had and watched many hours and understood comprehensively, but here it is. The Mo Norman swing has a single plane. In other words, there's no drop there, which creates a double plane. It's a straight line approach to the ball. As well as that, as far as total levers of the knees and everything, and the swing, which is a single axis and a single rotational plane, you have a total of about 23 total variables. Okay? And with traditional golf, with the traditional grip, immediately it puts you into 5 planes of rotary rotation as opposed to 1. 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 plus 1. Already there's a total of about 120 variables. Then 2 axes, 2 planes, 240, and by 21. So, but at any rate, if you do the math and then divide the total variables of the Mo Norman swing into it, you'll find out that there are about 1,234 and some decimal points times less variables to go out of whack when you go out to whack the ball with the Mo Norman natural golf swing than traditional. And as well as that, as it is known with traditional golf, in order to be a very proficient top-level golfer, you also have to have a genetic timing gift that you have to work on many hours a day to stay at the top of your game. Mo Norman golf, on the other hand, you can basically, with less practice, or less, and as I say, the ability to imprint on less variables, a manner by which you can, in fact, notably drop your handicap, and you will see results. I'll give you my personal experience, because I started golfing when I was about 32 years old. By the time I was 37, 39, I was golfing fairly regularly, and unfortunately had about a 23 handicap no matter what I did. And then I went on and got the little book from Jack Kirkendall, and over the next course of 2 or 3 years, self-learning in that and kind of getting some kinks out and phoning up Jack or another gentleman over at Natural Golf when it became a going concern. His name was Norm Gemignani. Anybody out there know him? I highly acknowledge the man. Credit given where credit is due. Talk to Norm. He golfed with Mo Norman on many times. Most knowledgeable man on the game. But the end result was that coming from a 23 over the next 2 or 3 years, golfing much less, I dropped down to about a 10 handicap. But the thing was, in my 10 handicap, I was somewhat adventurous and always trying this shot and that shot and doing kind of low percentage things. But on those occasions for the last few years that I was golfing regularly, if I just locked down and went into a game, I certainly could occasionally pull out a par round. Further to that, as far as the verifications of my background and training in natural golf, it is a lateral shift style of golf, like Latin American golf. And an acquaintance of mine that grew up in this area many years ago, about my age, won over 42 tournaments in this area. And the reason was he was a fairly good golfer, but in his younger years, he would paint in the oil field in the summer and go down to Mazatlan to the El Cid golf course in the winter and do a little bit of cleaning up and this and that around the green, get the greens and that. And the professional at the time, his name was Tomo Garcia, who was in his mid-70s at that time and was the youngest professional golfer at the time that he achieved his PGA ticket in Mexico at the age of 15. Tomo Garcia was a lateral shift golfer, and when I first was trying to learn off of Mike before I was aware of natural golf, it seemed rather unusual, but over time I became quite acquainted with the fact that Mike's type of guy was the same as the Tomo Garcia, a little different, but nonetheless the same single plane, single move. And the proof of the pudding was he had won 42 tournaments up here, and down in the El Cid, because he's quite proficient, he was the guest golfer that was sent out by the El Cid throughout Mexico through the winter on guest appearance tournaments. But that being said, at the age of 43, 44, after several years of me working on it, I ran into Mike, and we went out to recapture our youth, and we went at it, and he hadn't seen me golf for a few years, but at the end of it, when we got done, I putted in my last putt, and I had shot par, and he had shot one over. At which point he graciously became a gentleman again, and as opposed to being competitive in that, and as a gentleman, but they had games that go on in a game of golf. He immediately shook my hand, signed my golf card, and we went back to refreshments to the clubhouse. He was the first one to show off the card because, much to his benefit, everybody knew that Mike had spent a lot of time teaching me a lot about the game. So, and what the things are that we can progress through afterwards that I can offer is a proper warm-up drill. The sequence so you learn how to, on the driving range, how to make use of your time, how to warm up the sequentials in that, and as well as that, the variations and subtle variations between the iron play, the driver, and if you tend to be more of a swinger, like Jack Nicklaus was a swinger, Arnold Palmer was more of a hitter. The natural golf can play either way, but with that, I'm going to get into the thing about traditional golf just for a second. But here we have the traditional golf, and we turn back with this, and we have this. So we go up, and you see the blade, and the face of it is off. And as I say, the face doesn't come around square to the ball until just a few inches behind the ball and through. Okay. So your opportunity to hit the ball, and as well as that, if you are more than about 1.5 degree off a square on the ball on a long drive, you're off the fairway. So that being said, we will go through the traditional golf again. Now, as I say, you're at a stance, and you have this axis, and you have this axis. Now, when you go through and it stretches out, you have to be subconsciously moving upward and backward because it straightens out to compensate so you don't dig in and hit it fat. And so, and as well as that, a chiropractically thing, a lot of golfers that have golfed a lot in their life, say for example Jack Nicklaus and numerous other right-handed golfers, with that upward move in traditional golf, you have 200 pounds of torque upright on your right hip coming through the ball that is not there with natural golf. And that is why, chiropractically, a lot of people with lower back or hip things, they will switch over from traditional golf to natural golf, and they find immediately those problems kind of alleviate, or the back is not as sore after they're done. But that being the case, I'm going to go into the natural golf here right now and things. But first off, Mo Norman, when he was younger, he decided, why would you take all these big things? Because he was talking to a carpenter, and he says, how about the hammer? And the carpenter says, no, you don't go up there. You just go up to get the timing. And Mo thought, well, that's right, it is a hammer. Because, so he developed his formats, his pattern training in that, on the idea that it was a hammer. And he developed a grip that was according to, and so here you have the hammer, and as you see immediately, your grip is different. Your grip is different, you're holding it like a hammer, okay? And when you come back, you see how the face of the hammer is straight in line. It never comes off the plane of the ball. So all the way back and all the way through, it's running square to the ball. Unlike if you have the traditional golf, see how it comes off. So with that one plane of rotary rotation instead of 5 times 4, 20 times 3, 60 times 121 times less variables right there on that. Now as well as that, on that simple thing, as far as the static positions, rotary golf, traditional golf, as I say, world-class timing, many variables, but the thing about it is, I refer to mine, as I say, about 1,234 times less variables in it, as 1, 2, 3, 4 golf somewhat, because as far as the static positions, here's basically, you shift 1, 2, 3, 4, and then release. And that's it. So over a period of time, you have to be a little bit more hands-on in a non-person session that I'm going to spend right now. But essentially, for 21 days, what you do is you start off, and I will get out a ball here just to demonstrate, but essentially, take that, and there's for reference, but essentially, you go there, and you do the shift. So you're shifting straight back, and that's the thing. Traditional golf is more of a twirl. Natural golf is lateral shift, and you're letting the club twirl out, pulling out by rotation, and basically G-forces extending to pull it around and straight down the line. So, as I say, with Mo Norman thing, there's no twirl. Everything is moving straight down the line towards the target line. That is why he is known as the straightest ball striker in the game. And that's what he played, was a straight ball, which you could hit one after the other as he would wish. Question mark, how are you for distance with this on traditional golf, against traditional golf? More compact, more efficient. A lot of people claim that it does go as far or further, and yes, further. But the other thing about it, if we all might remember Chichi Rodriguez, who was golfing in the 60s, early 70s, about 5'6" and 124 pounds. In the 1963 All-Star Golf Reel, it was on the Golf Channel, he got introduced, he stood up there, and those were the statistics, in 1963 with old Persimmon Woods, and he basically blew one out there 280 yards. I thought, how was he getting all that into it? And then I thought, my. But they did a replay in that, showing him in slow motion, and I saw something in it, and I thought, did I just see how he gets all that power from a little guy into the ball? But he did. I was late in the fall. I had 12, 14 golf balls left. I lived in a farmyard. I went out into the front yard, kind of got the feel for it. And at that time, I was 40, 49, 50. And my club shaft, well, it was set up for the way I was doing it, but back then I was carrying the ball 250, 265 of carry. And these were old shag balls out into the field. But I got the feel for it, and all of a sudden, out of the 12 or 14 I hit, all of a sudden, I got it. Well, some they were overpowering, because it is a very powerful move that you can put the head of the club about 2 feet behind the ball, because the upper body just can't keep up, because it totally connects you through the ball. But all of a sudden, I was seeing successes, and regularly, and later with about 4 or 5 of those drives, late in the fall, which were the last ones that I hit and got really excited about the next spring. And they were carrying 300 yards. I pooped up 35 yards of carry just by getting totally connected and putting an easiness into the ball. And then afterwards, I noticed on the Mo Norman swing that that's exactly what he was doing, but it wasn't as notable as with Chi-Chi. But there is a way that you can basically put it into it, and it is the most connected, powerful technique that you can have. And it's guaranteed to pull you through all in time and straight down the line, which is why Gigi Rodriguez, as far as some and others said, he definitely was the one that was, as far as horsepower to distance, the one. But that being said, we're going to go at it here. And here are the static positions, but if you wanted to try them, but you shift back like that, and then you tuck back until there, and as soon as it gets, you can't get any higher, then you do the shoulder turn. So you see, you're sequentially loading the swing, so it's all smooth, and you can basically come back. So your static positions, of course, after the shift is 1, 2, drop, 3, and 4, and through. And if you do those static positions properly set up 60 times a day for 21 days, your subconscious imprinting, you will have a subconscious program that you can basically become quite automatic with and quite reliable. And for such reason, that is why I basically went from a 23 handicap, and quite hopeless at that, down to a very easy 10. And on those 2 or 3 occasions a year that for some reason somebody wanted to go and kind of go head to head or whatever, that would happen. Last 8 or 10 years, I've golfed very few times, you know, half a dozen to a dozen times in the last 3 or 4 years per season. But, you know, say for example, a couple of years ago, I was out with a friend and hadn't golfed for a long time, but we had our annual golf thing. He quite often beat me. He was a good golfer, but you know, it was, bogey here, par there. But all of a sudden, my last 5 holes, I came along 5 pars in a row to finish off. Year before that, it was a funny thing, but a friend and I were out, and he mentioned that Bryson DeChambeau went and laid out one about 420, 430 yards the day before, and I thought, how did he get that connected? Because I was talking to somebody, and all of a sudden Bryson DeChambeau pulls out next. Oh, well, maybe word got it wrong, but at any rate, he got into my head just by saying that. After 2 holes, I was proudly 4 over. At that point, I kind of bore down, and for the next 7 holes, they shot 1 under for a 3 over round. You know, that just comes out when you got everything cooking. But when you're working with a subconscious timing program that's patterned, that it is there and reliable, you're only dealing with 23 variables instead of 24,000. You know, it's not too bad. Even if you're not a world-class timing guy, to have a good, reliable game that if it's in the trunk of the car for 3 or 4 weeks and you get out to the driving range and get smoothed out, you're going to have a reliable game on the fairway. And as well as that, as far as iron play, different techniques, however sophisticated you want to take your game, you most certainly can, and I am most certainly capable of teaching you. With that, I would also mention that you can also go out and look out for a video on here that I have called the front porch swing putting technique, which is, as it says, it is the front porch swing. But to give you an idea, just for curiosity here, the reason I call it the front porch swing is it's just out here. And where I came upon it was I tried a long putter, you know, off the shoulder and the lever, and I could see the benefits to it, except well, I couldn't see the sense of carrying that around in my putting bag. I mean, my golf bag. So, and then I thought, well, why not use your body as the long putter? And at which point, in the basement that winter at my brother's place in the evenings, on the carpet down there, I worked on it, and all I did was I rolled out my shoulder, and this all works as one unit, just like a long putter. There's your pivot point. See how my lower body isn't doing anything? And you see how it's straight line to the ball? You can basically put your putter down through an eaves trough, and no in and out. You don't have to concentrate on keeping your lower body still. And at that point, I worked it out, and it was double checked by the top PGA Master Professional Putting Coach in the world out of Hawaii. I sent a video to him. He watched the one that's on YouTube. He sent back a few qualifying questions and this, that, and the next thing for clarifications. After I sent them, he said it is exactly what that video says it is. And what I say it is something that everybody figured was totally unachievable, to actually run a putting stroke in your subconscious. Where your high-speed swings are, it's controlled by your subconscious. Everybody figures the yips and that of putting is because you're using a conscious stroke. But I've done it in a way that it's not. And essentially, it's just the front porch swing, you roll out in the swing. But as well as that, what you're doing in the warm-up, as I say, is you are imagining the toss of the backhand towards the target and the forehand. And then there's the rituals as far as the setup and that, to imprint, to get your weight, to get your feel in that. And it's just basically a very small swing or a hammer swing. But as you see, back in that, so basically with fixed tension, you pull back just like pulling back a string on an arrow. You put fixed resistance there. The more you pull back, the more tension builds up. And when you let go, all of a sudden that tension that's pulling that way, it automatically pulls right back with your subconscious, and all you're concentrating on to control your swing on the delivery is that short little bit of contraction of those muscles right there. And that's it. So at that point, you're basically imagining the toss and that towards the hole or your target line. And when you pull back, then you just stop pulling back and let the pull that was building up immediately pull forward. And all you're doing is concentrating on those muscles tighten back up and deliver the toss of the ball towards the hole. And yes, it is very accurate. So much so I demonstrated to a friend one night at about 15, 16 feet on a carpet how many times I might be able to put it in a row before it ended up. 19 in a hole, 19 in a row. Number 20, there was a bit of anticipation. It was 1.5 inches short, but again, it is so accurate that as far as percentages in that, it does land to prove itself as very reliable. And if you watch that video about the front porch swing golf putting set technique, there's a notable professional from Australia whose father and I conferred, and I sent it down there. There was some notable effect that maybe some of the things that he looked at with my video that I sent down on to his father, a very decent fellow. His name was Phil Scott, Adam's father, and as well as that, so there is some mention in the video, but at any rate, you folks, if you do wish to get a hold of me, down in the description level will be my phone number, my email, but it is 306-485-9976. And as far as my lessons, well, for kids, for this, for that, whatever might be able to suit the key occasion. And as far as the type of formats, I can give you a full comprehensive. And as well as that, whatever your skill level is, I can certainly help out. And just for the proof of the pudding, I'll tell you what, if you do give me a call, we meet at the course and that, I'll tell you what, you go ahead and we'll have the session. And at the end of it, on the basis of the one session, you will have to cover the cost of the balls and maybe a nominal charge just to say that, well, I bought the kind old man a cup of coffee and something, some food for thought about the fact that it was a pretty favorable lesson. And when you do see the results and you wish to come back, well, then there's discounts for for numerous or whatever, and at any rate, whatever suits the bill. And of course, for kids and stuff, and moms and dads and tight budgets and that, well, the whole idea is to allow the kids to have some fun. And essentially, money is not the object. It's basically the thought that counts. And if you can work out something that we can help each other in some thoughtful regard. That's all that really counts. And with that, I do wish you a good day. And with that, I do hope that you might be curious enough. And by all means, go out and Google about Mo Norman Natural Golf, Jack Kirkendall, Kuykendall. And yes, I spent a lot of time with Jack over the years. Todd Graves, that I mentioned, spent a lot of time with Mo Norman. I've never met Todd, but down in that area in the United States, he is certainly a worthy man to call. And there's a couple of others that, who is it, that you might be able to find over in the, I believe he was in the Minnesota Lakehead area years ago. His name is Scott Hazeldine, who was a PGA professional. And there's numerous others, but if you're up in southeast Saskatchewan of Canada, might wish to have some references. If Mr. Dr. Kirkendall was still alive, or a few others that still may that I have not been in contact with for many years, they can certainly verify that I certainly can teach some golf. And at one time, when I was golfing regularly, I was fairly decent at it too. But my size and shape now, I'm 68, and but when I was in my early 50s, not in greatest shape, and a bit of a mismatched driver at that time, but Rory McIlroy and I were pretty much physically about the same size and shape when I was his age, and when I was in my early 50s, I was hitting yardage that was his equivalence with an efficiency of natural golf, and thankfully, Mo Norman style maximum power, yes, effortless power instead of powerless effort. And as well as that, if you do see results, all I ask is that if you might ask how you got that extra thing, you can say I taught you, but credit given where credit is due. You make sure that it's something that basically Chi Rodriguez shows, and basically with his old putter as the bullfighter, that man essentially, he turned that thing into a bullwhip. And basically, here's the other insight. Take a baseball bat or a golf club and you're maxing out, treating it like however you do it. Maybe 115, 125 miles per hour is about it, sort of thing, if you're doing it with a swing. But the thing is, if you basically use it like a bullwhip, and you hear the snap of the bullwhip, with a real bullwhip. You know what the snap is from? That's from breaking the sound barrier. And I'm not saying that Chi broke the sound barrier, but he broke up the boredom the night that all of a sudden I was getting 30, 35 yards extra carry, just by basically being able to put the power and the big muscles like a linebacker into the swing with the total connection, and that you really connect. And with that, I shall move along. And no, I do not basically carry it out the 320, 310 carry anymore, and my drives don't go 330, 340. But then I'm not a kid anymore. But at the same time, I still can do a respectable job of hitting the ball further than a lot of guys my age. And as well as that, my lower back and hip problems totally disappeared when I went over to this. So if you have a chiropractor that's always trying to keep you in shape, and you like your golf game, but you'd like to get rid of the chiropractic problems of golf, give me a call, 306-485-9976. And with that, I wish you my best regards, and keep it in the short grass.